let's say, what we probably do see is a tremendous continuity in our own habits and patterns. We've got certain kind of ways of behaving that are not only habitual but quite compulsive at times, and they're often driving us behind everything that we're doing. And from a Buddhist point of view, we'd say quite a lot of that is going to carry us through and see us beyond death, or certainly show up beyond death. Whether you believe that or not is up to you, but death is very mysterious, and habits and the formation of the mind, or the nature of the mind, is very mysterious. So how we're patterned, how our mind creates who we are, how our lives are dictated by certain tendencies in ourselves, all of that is quite mysterious, and also very, well, you can see how it also does get created. We sometimes think of ourselves as being somebody with a habit, but Sangharakshita, my teacher, would say it's more like we are the habit. We are a habit that we've got into. It's not so much that we're somebody who's got into a habit, but we are a habit. And I don't know if you've ever tried to change your life so that certain tendencies didn't take root. Sometimes we change a job, or we change a relationship, or we move house, or we change a group of friends. But eventually, whatever habit we generally inhabit, it's there again. We meet ourselves again. And if you like, we can look back on our past life. In this life, we can look back on a previous job, a previous relationship, and think it was just a kind of memory, but actually the person who we are still continues. There's this lovely verse in the Bodhicharyavatara, which is a very ancient text, Buddhist text, where Shantideva is saying, enemies can die, people that we struggle with can move on, all of that can change, but the habits that we've got into stay the same. So we're always up against those mental factors. So there's quite a strong momentum behind us and our personality. And what we're trying to do through meditation is to release some of those habits so that we become more creative. This is what we're aiming for, a much more creative, looser, a more responsive awareness, more responsive personality. So where do these habits or tendencies show up? And they show up mostly through very habitual and compulsive thinking. I think a lot of us live in our thoughts all the time, actually. We're just living out our life. Sometimes life is more like a virtual reality than the actual reality itself. We're just living out through our thoughts so much. So we can try and find, through meditation, we can try and find relief through some of those thoughts. But actually what we're looking for is release rather than relief. And release means going into the mind, into the mood, into the states of mind that are driving those thoughts. That's where we've got to go. And this is where our strongest patterning and habitual sort of tendencies are based. So we all know about thoughts. If you've got any kind of experience of meditation, you know you're up against a lot of distraction and distracting thoughts. Thoughts are going on all the time. There's this lovely metaphor that you can use of thoughts in being like a train that passes by. I remember Vidyamala used to teach this quite a bit when I used to teach with her. And we can be meditating, or we can be doing our life, having a life, and a thought arises and we jump on it like a train passing, and we jump on the thought. Another train arises, passes, and we jump on the thought. And sometimes we jump on a thought and stay on it for quite a few stations, yeah? Sometimes we hardly ever get off. We're in that thought so much. But so it's important for us to see the thoughts, and it's important for us to recognize us maybe jumping on, jumping off. But what makes us jump on those thoughts in the first place? Why do we get on that train? Okay. And that's what we're going to try and address. Why do we get on that train in the first place? So if we're in quite a positive state of mind, quite a contented state of mind or spacious state of mind, a thought arises, maybe can be quite a demanding thought, and we can pop on it and pop off again quite quickly. We're quite flexible and easy. But when we're more taken over by certain states of mind, and that thought seems to serve that state of mind, then we get on the train and we stay there. I think there's all sorts of reasons why we do that. I think when we're being driven by a very compulsive mental event or mood, then we kind of think, if I can think this through, I'll be all right. We sort of think we can find relief from that state of mind through thinking. But sometimes those states of mind don't need thinking about. They need to be attended to, and we need to face those states of mind. And often what's driving those thoughts is a discomfort underneath it all, like a discomfort of loneliness or fright, fear, would it be a sense of lack. I noticed this quite a bit, certainly at the first stages of the pandemic that we've all been living through for the last few years, couple of years. People got very obsessive about research and information and quite sort of compulsive around talking about how they were dealing with the pandemic or what they were going to do. And I noticed this in myself. I didn't get into quite those conversations, but I got into certain activity. And in the retreat centre here, living in Adistana, suddenly all our events got cancelled. We were suddenly living a very, very different life from the life that we'd been living before. And I noticed more and more a certain state of mind going on behind the thoughts. And what that was a sort of desperate need to control life. And I thought, oh, okay, a lot of the time my life is fairly controlled. I can generally get the food I need. I can generally get the medication that I need. I can generally go out walking without meeting a contagious disease or without the risk of life. This is quite a lucky position to be in. A lot of the world do not live under such benign circumstances. I see that when, for instance, women come from India and stay here, and they can't believe that they can go for a walk on their own around this situation. You just realise then what a benign sort of life that I lead, but it's very, it disguises the existential fear and discomfort that's underneath everything, and I was starting to contact that. So thoughts get stimulated by that discomfort. So we need to try and address that those underlying mental events, or at least know what's there, because those mental events, those tendencies underneath the thoughts are what's driving our life and what is patterning our life. And they're going to show up whether we change a relationship or change a job or whatever. I mean, in some ways you can think of thinking as being like a flag. A flag's being waved, and you can think the issue is the flag, but actually who's waving the flag? What's waving the flag? The thoughts are just the symptoms. So we're looking for release rather than relief. So if we can do this more and become more aware of those underlying patternings, underlying moods, mental states, then the awareness that we'll have available to us is just going to be much broader. We're going to be more self-aware, what's really going on in us, but also more aware of other people We'd be less sort of preoccupied with who we are. We'd have more knowledge of who we are. Yeah, I think sometimes we acknowledge, oh yes, we're living with a state of anxiety, for instance. And we think it's just today's problem. Oh yes, I'm feeling a bit anxious today. But how often do we have to admit that we live with a state of anxiety before we realise we're actually quite a fearful person? That anxiety is something that's shaping our life a lot of the time. Yeah, so we're trying to acknowledge a lot more of what's going on. Yeah, and if we can do that, then something sort of quietens down. Our mental states start quietening down. Our mental activity begins to quieten down. And then we're addressing the root problem with a more sort of still, contented, spacious mind. And this is where problems really do get solved. We have this lovely image of being like a bee. When a bee is buzzing around, he's making quite a lot of noise, sort of noise all around the place. Yeah. But when he finds a flower that he wants to drink the nectar from, he goes absolutely silent. Yeah. So that's like us. We're just buzzing around the whole time, the mental events, buzzing around. But when we find the nectar, even if the nectar is that discomfort of loneliness or the discomfort of being out, realizing our life is out of control, lives are out of control, then something quietens down. And yeah, so when we're in that quieter, more spacious state of mind, then our thinking does become more productive, and we are a more creative state. We're in a more creative state. Yeah, so one of the reasons why we get so caught up in these particular trains of thought is all the trains have me written on them. This is what it's all about as well. Yeah, even if the thought is about somebody else, it's usually a thought about ourselves. You think, I like that person as the train goes past. I like that person. What you're really saying is, I'm like them. They've got something I like that I've also got. Yeah, you're confirming something about yourself. Or you think, I don't like them. They don't do that very well. And what you're saying is, I'm different from that. I don't do that thing. All the time all the trains have got me written on them. And we're jumping on and off those trains, but just to protect the me that's underlying everything. So we're looking for these thoughts that are establishing who we are. Yeah, so who would we be without those thoughts? And who would we be without those habits? Maybe unrecognizable. Sometimes, given how strongly, how closely the body and mind are connected, there is just body and mind. Sometimes when we begin to change our thoughts, we begin to change our body. People begin to see behavior, our behavior changes. The way we walk might behave, or the way we move or sit down might change, sorry. It's the mysterious nature of the mind and the body. Okay, so I think that's probably all I need to say right now. Yeah, it's quite a lot of talking before we meditate. So what we'll do is I'll just lead us in a bit of a meditation, and we'll see what goes on. And then we'll have a few minutes break after the meditation. Those of you that need to leave can do so, and we'll carry on with some question and answers. Yeah, so just setting yourself up for your meditation, whatever way you require to do that. You can switch off your screen if that would be easier, or turn your computer away if you don't want to be distracted by it. You have that privilege. That's nice. I've got a photograph of somebody's bed in front of me. Very good. Got Patrick sitting next to me who's just setting himself up in meditation as well. Very good. So just closing your eyes, letting some of my words just disappear into the silence. Just letting the mind relax and the body relax. Feeling contact with the floor or your seat. Just taking your awareness to that contact. The overall weight of your body making contact with the ground and the seat cushion. Relaxing the big muscles in the legs. Relaxing any tension in the buttocks, the basin of the pelvis. letting your belly be its own natural shape. No need to hold it. Noticing how the tension in the lower back releases when the belly releases. Feeling the movements of the breath in your body as you move up the torso, taking your awareness into the chest, diaphragm, the upper back. Letting your arms be heavy and quiet, your hands soft and quiet. Just letting go of any activity in the hands and arms. Dropping the shoulders, releasing the jaw. Just letting your facial expression be released from any personality, released from any social norms. You can just be at ease as itself. Just feeling at home in yourself, in this natural state. And becoming aware of this body breathing, the movements of the breath. And just being quite receptive to who you are right now, the mood that you're in, or any preoccupation. Just allowing the breath to come in and go out within all those mental events. Noticing whether your mind is spacious or restricted. Noticing your relationship with yourself right now. Are you finding yourself easy to be with or difficult to be with? Noticing any thoughts, those thoughts passing through your mind like trains. Noticing any compulsion to get on the train. Noticing how we're trying to find satisfaction or ease from those particular thoughts. Is there a mental state, a mood that's propelling you to think? If the mind is calm and concentrated, just dwell there, relax. Let the breath deepen that concentration. Just following the breath. Or maybe there's a tension or discomfort that's creating a lot of activity in the mind. Just turning towards it, entering into it, just meeting it in its own edginess and depth, just recognizing it for what it is. Maybe that discomfort shows up in the body, taking your awareness to that part of the body, just settling there. Is there a particular thought train that you spend a lot of time on? What's driving you to enter that train? We are a habit that we've got into, like a knot in a piece of string. But we've got into it ourselves, so we can get out of it. Now just releasing any effort, just being with the breath, being with the breathing body. Just letting any mental strain fall away. Just opening the mind to the sounds around you. Letting the outer world come into the inner world. And just in your own way, bringing the meditation to a close. When you're ready, just opening your eyes. Moving your body. So you might want to just move around a little bit, just to ease any sitting muscle tension. And I know some of you probably have to leave now, go to work or start your day or whatever you need to do. And in a minute, when Patrick's got his jumper sorted out, I'm going to ask him just to put the website for the Dharma in the chat. If anyone can give any money to this project, please do so during the break. Yes. Yeah, we're hoping to, yes, goodbye to those of you who've got to go. We're hoping to keep this project going in whatever way we can, and it requires quite a bit of funds. So any money that you can donate to Nature of Mind Project, please do so. For those of us that can continue for the next 30 minutes, just moving around a little bit, just relaxing any tension, sitting tension. Okay, so we've got 20 minutes or so just to hear any questions or getting into some sort of conversation or something. You might want to put any questions into the chat, and either Patrick or Nick will let me know what they are. I don't know which one it is. And also you can just unmute yourself and say something or flag it and I'll call you in or something. I don't think I've got everybody on the screen. I've got a lot of you on my screen at the moment, but there's another screen available. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so Natasha is saying, I'm just jumping on any train, but it's very helpful to have the meditation guided. I'm a bit embarrassed that it's like that because I've been meditating for quite some years.
Hello, Natasha. Yeah. I don't know why you're jumping on a train, given that you're living in such a lovely sunny place at the moment. So is there something driving that restlessness and activity? Do you know? Is there a sort of you can unmute yourself and we can have a conversation? Maybe that would be the best thing if you can do that. I'm going to ask you. I am looking. I've got two things going on, just so you know, in case you're wondering. I've got a camera and I've got Natasha to one side, so I'm sometimes looking at her and sometimes looking at the camera, which is why my eyes are doing something funny. Natasha, have you got anything driving that kind of restlessness? Do you know?
Yeah, when you were asking that during the meditation, I was seeing it was some kind of life force.
Hmm.
It's energy,
Yeah.
but so I didn't see it actually like very as a very negative thing, but it obviously, drives me. But I feel that it's a lack of being able to to, well, I don't know, to
Yeah.
get myself back again.
Yeah. That's fine. That's good to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Natasha, it's like there's this life energy. It's quite positive. You're just a very energetic person, and it probably doesn't. It's probably not very interested in meditation. I mean, I can understand that. It's. I mean, it's quite a boring activity in so many ways, isn't it? Let's face it. So you've got to get that energy more involved. I wonder what it really wants to do, what that yearning or that kind of what does it really want to do? I mean, it might want to connect with others, connect with somebody, have a stronger intimacy. It might want to feel it's really doing something satisfying. And is there any way of you giving yourself that kind of intimacy on your meditation cushion, or giving it something really satisfying to do? I mean, what you're trying to do is unfold a meaningful life. Okay, this is the project we're engaged with, and your energy will get interested in that. Yeah? But we need to sort of bring it in, and sort of give it a taste for it. Yeah? And I mean, if you've got a very physical energy, restless physical energy, sometimes we do need to do something more physical to bring our mind together, to draw our mind together. Yeah. I wonder if there's a way of you connecting with yourself more deeply or strongly that would make that energy settle, like it really feels it's being met by you.
Mm.
I don't know if that would do where that would take you.
But it's a very interesting formulation of this, like kind of putting it back in. I think it's a very interesting question, Saddhanandi.
Okay. Well,
I will reflect on that. Yeah.
Take it for a walk today. When you're moving around, just see where that restless energy is sort of manifesting, and see what does it really need right now? What does it really want? What is it driving me? What's driving me? And see if you can just be with it, like a restless child, be with it. Yeah. But good luck. I'm looking forward to hearing how you get on. Yeah.
Thank you.
I wish you were here, and then we could run around together.
Lovely. Another time.
Another time, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other thoughts or questions?
Yep, so Alan Williams is saying, I notice that my recall of anything that's happened during my meditation is almost gone very soon. Any tips?
Well, maybe there was nothing very important going on, I don't know, that needs to sort of stay in your mind. Or maybe it's more like you just need to be aware, it's like the flow of sea, it's just all past right now, and just how a lot of our life just passes us by. And maybe after meditation, you could just sit still for a few minutes and just sort of regather yourself. And maybe then what has happened in your meditation will just be there. And it doesn't have to be there in a great long list of things that happened. It's more like a flavour of yourself, just being with yourself and a flavour of yourself. There's in that interview that Vajratara did with Carol Bowman, there's this lovely moment where Vajratara's describing an accident she has on one of the big motorways in the UK, or a near accident, and she realises that she might die. And in that moment, she recalls that she's led an ethical life. And Carol Bowman says to her, in that moment, you were unusually present to your life. So this is what we want to sort of develop in ourselves, the ability to be unusually present in our life. And maybe after meditation, you can just sit and be unusually present to your life. Sometimes meditation just feeds a certain kind of flavour or strand that's not necessarily about all the details of the meditation. I mean, I don't know if that answers the question or gives you any kind of indication of what to do, or whether you're looking for more of a sense of how do I address this sort of absence, if that's what the question's about. Let's see where you are. Anything else coming up in the chat from Alan or Alan himself, Alan Williams? No, nothing. Can you give me the second screen, Patrick? Oh, just see if I can pick up with him. No.
So Tijani is asking, I'm often thinking of work. Is it because I'm attaching with work a lot? How to change it, because it's a career that I really want to leave/change.
Okay. We've got a lot of energy in work, haven't we? When I was leading a lot of meditation retreats and people were getting very sleepy, sometimes people get very sleepy, and I'd say, oh, just think about work or think about sex and let's just get a bit of energy going. And there is energy in those areas. work. I can understand that. A lot of, I mean, give yourself. Okay, thanks, Alan. It's fine to have a career, and it's fine to really love your work. Thank goodness you love your work. I'm very happy for you. Let's think. Just notice that there might be certain things that you need to think through with your work, like there's maybe certain kind of actual details that need to be sorted out. And it's quite good to keep a bit of a diary of what they are, like make a note of them. I notice that I have a lot of thoughts about work because I'm not writing anything down, and I've got quite a good memory, but it means I have to keep thinking the same thought over and over again so that I remember it. Whereas if I just write it down, that thought doesn't happen anymore. So that's just a little kind of piece of advice, if you like. Just keep writing it down, and sometimes even have a pen and paper next to your meditation cushion and just write down the thing that you need to think about to do with work. And it really will stop thinking. You really will stop thinking that thought. The other thing is, of course, that there's a lot of us, there's a lot of me involved in my work, especially if I'm enjoying it and it confirms something about myself. So is there something that you are reassuring yourself about who you are? I'm a very good person because I work like this, or I'm going to be a success, I'm a successful person, or the sense of lack, a sense of lack that you've always had in your life, you're suddenly feeling sort of fulfilled, and you're reassuring and filling yourself up over and over again. That's fine, but go to that piece of work as well, right? Don't just stay on the superficial level of the flag that mental event is waving. Don't stay just on the level of detail and content. What is the mood, or what is it you're really trying to satisfy by that thought? And that might be even more creative. I mean, it might be that it's not a sense of lack or a sense of wanting to confirm something. It might actually be just pleasure. And then go towards the pleasure and feel like, what does it feel? Allow your mind to become full of that pleasure, that satisfaction, and see what happens there. Does that answer the question at all? Tijani, is that how you say your name? Yeah.
So Amy is saying, I notice I'm quite critical of having these habitual tendencies. The sense, will they ever leave me alone? I know it's just the mind. I guess it's a mess in progress, like somebody recently said. I think that was Padma Sagara quoting Aloka, a mess in progress.
Yeah. They're not going to leave us alone for a long time, so just relax and settle in. Yeah, I'm thinking actually in a couple of days' time we might do a meditation based on living with habitual tendencies and the compassion that we're going to need to feel. We're all very conditioned beings, and we've been creating very strong tendencies in ourselves that are continually reconditioning who we are. So we're living with that, and we're living with other people who are living with that, and they're living with us, living with that, if you see what I mean. So we're all a mess in progress, as you say, Amy. So it's good to have a lot of kindness in the system, and maybe I can lead a meditation based on that. And when you begin to realize how strong those tendencies are, actually what you can do is relax a bit of blame around some of the things that we end up doing because we're being driven so much by them. As Paul Gilbert would say, it's not our fault, but it is a tendency we can get out of. And let me think, where am I going to go with this? Different things. I mean, one thing you can look for is where is the nourishment that you get? Where is the satisfaction you get from some of those mental events? we get very familiar with them, and then we start living in them just because they're familiar. It's not because they're pleasant. So we've kind of taken up we've made our house, like the Buddha said, house builder, I see you. So we've created a house of these mental events, and we're now living inside them. And it gets a bit frightening to step out of them. So can you see what you've made where is the comfort that you get from those tendencies? And see if you can relax that, or just go into it and see if that there's some sort of a deeper nourishment that you can get underneath that requires something a bit different. Yeah, but living with these tendencies with kindness is probably a major factor. They are going to, we can actually eventually do something with them, but it's going to take a while. Seeing some of the chat, but I can't read it because of the microphone, and also because I can't see the whole thing. So
Shakya Jata is saying, I feel my life is messy and worthless. When I recognise that, it relaxes, releases. That's the train.
That is the training, Shakya Jata. That's very good to hear. And that's where you're like a very buzzy bee, and then it settles when it sits on that nourishment. And actually to just be in contact with ourselves on a deeper level is much more satisfying than being with the thoughts that we think are going to solve the problem. Yeah. The problem will not be solved with all those little thoughts that we're having all the time. That's just problem-solving activity. It's not really going to the kind of hunger or the kind of existential kind of conditioning and situation we've got ourselves into. So very good to hear, Shakya Jata. Thank you.
And Eva is saying, following what you said in response to this question, if you recognise the content of the thought, what do we do with it? Do we need to try and let it go?
It slightly depends what the content is. I'm just tuning in with this. Sometimes the content is just detail. It's just the weather is sunny today, or I wonder if I'll put sugar on my porridge, or I wonder what's for supper tonight, whatever it is. So sometimes it's just froth, it's just foam on the sea, on the waves. And sometimes it indicates something else that's a bit deeper. It indicates a stronger mood, and see if you can drop below the content of the thought and just go with more of the mood of it, and see if you can address that, or at least come into relationship with that. Yeah. Don't be what's the word? I'm going to say the word beguiled. I don't know if that is the right word, but don't be taken in by content. Yeah, our minds are going to throw up. Our mind tends to throw up content, and we get very fascinated by it, but it's really not as interesting as what's driving the content, or what's underneath it. It won't be so satisfying. But sometimes content does need attending to. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if that goes a bit full circle. I don't know if that really answers the question for you. I suppose what it is I don't really want you to dismiss your thoughts all the time. At the same time, you've got to know whether they're just a flag being waved and what the flag is, and understand that. And if you continually give too much attention to your thoughts, you won't really know what's going on underneath that. And then we're not very much in touch with ourselves. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, so Sandy is saying, I'm aware that I live with a lot of anxiety and have always done throughout my life. I'm aware that it drives a lot of my behaviours. It can be very uncomfortable to live with at times, but meditation has helped me, made me aware of it. It's hard to bring kindness to that at times.
Yeah. Well, when you look at life face on, it's no wonder any of us are anxious. There's a lot of unpredictability about life. But notice where thoughts intensify anxiety. I've been watching this a bit myself recently when I've been noticing quite a bit of anxiety. And what happens is we have a sort of anxious, sort of restless, sort of existential edginess in us, a discomfort. We have a discomfort. And then we have a thought. And then we get into the idea that if we think certain thoughts, we'll feel better. So then we end up being in a sort of perpetual sort of cycle of anxiety thoughts, thoughts about anxiety, which are just anxious thoughts, more anxiety. And often the thoughts even feed the anxiety. Sometimes we need to solve something without thinking. It's so difficult. How do we think the right thoughts so that we can release from the thoughts and not be driven by them? So this might happen in meditation, but it might need to happen off the cushion where how do you go into the anxiety and just be with it with kindness and with attentiveness, being attentive and aware without, and just silence the thoughts that's feeding it, I suppose, you know. I mean, often it gets into a vicious circle. Often we've got anxiety because the thoughts that we're having tell us that anxiety is what we need to have. You see what I mean? It's sort of perpetuating into a cycle. And if there's a way of breaking that cycle, it's probably by going into the underlying tendency and knowing I'm anxious. Now try not to let any thoughts get a hold of it. And just be with your anxiety and be there with kindness and stillness and see if there's anything that's underneath that. And it might just be a fear of life, and that is totally fine. It's fine to be frightened of life. It's a big thing to have going on, but just allow yourself to be at that level. Yeah. Maybe more of that will come out throughout the week.
So that's it in terms of questions.
Great.
So far.
Very good. I mean, one of the ways that we can break a cycle or break the habits that we've got into is by going on retreat. So we have got retreats planned around the Nature of Mind project, or there might be retreats in your area, your local area. And there is something about being in a different environment with a slightly simpler conditions, where we're more able to be with our moods and our mental events with more stillness and more ease. So do consider that. Do consider coming on retreat as a way of just creating a bit more of a firewall in our habits. Yeah. And we've got a couple of those retreats. Yeah, we've got a couple of those retreats coming up. We've got one here at Adistana for this project, which starts, I think, on Wednesday actually. So in about 10 days' time. And you'll probably find retreats online as well, which can help if you set up the right environment at home. And there'll be local retreats that you could attend, run by different Buddhist centres if you're near a Buddhist centre. Yeah, so do try and create a little bit more spaciousness around that, and then, but just really move in on yourself, move in onto a deeper level of yourself in whatever way you can. Anything else? Yes, please give us some money just to keep this project going. It costs us loads of money with tech situations, tech people, presentations, travel. If you can give £50 for each cycle, that would be great, or the equivalent of like €50 or whatever you've got. That'd be great. Yeah, and please come on retreat. I think that's all I need to say. I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And is there anything else? Any other questions or any other thoughts you've got?
Yeah, there was one more question that's come through. Okay. So Paul's asking, am I right to accept a worry coming into my mind and just let it go? There's a part of me that says I should address it and deal with it.
Well, can you address it and deal with it on your cushion when that thought comes? I mean, what is it? It's like Shantideva in the Bodhicitta would say, if you can address it, then stop worrying. And if you can't address it, stop worrying, sort of thing. So there is, you could take a more, that sort of method with it. But it might just be a flag that's saying there's something else going on, pay attention. Or it might just be a little distraction and you can just let it go. Or it just might mean that you need to address it when you come off the cushion and you just need to write it down and or try and remember it. But trying to remember it means it's going to come up in your meditation over and over again, because all the time you're going to be thinking, I must remember that little worry. I must remember that little worry, and that's going to happen every 5 minutes. So see what happens during the day with that thought. And yeah, do just have a look at how your mind works throughout the rest of the day. You've had a bit of a taste of something maybe, and see what you do with that, and let me know tomorrow. It'd be good to see you all tomorrow. Great. Okay, I think we can probably say goodbye. If you want to unmute yourself and say goodbye, please do so, or say goodbye in the chat. Yeah.
Thanks, Saddhanandi. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Saddhanandi.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
tomorrow.
Saddhanandi.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, Saddhanandi.
Good to see you,
And
Alice.
everybody else. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Entering the maze.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.